Hey friends, surprise, it's me. Happy Tuesday evening. I just got done teaching one of our big idea classes, which I absolutely love because it's different every time. Let's see what my hair is doing. Wait for y'all to hop on this Tuesday evening when you're chilling at home and I'm wrapping up at the office. Gosh, look at this. It's crazy looking. Oh, how about that? Maybe now, for those of you who have tuned in, you're learning that the first 30 seconds are dead space until you know, see, there's a person, you know that I'm live. I think I'm gonna actually use the first 30 seconds to tame my hair. But I wanted to come on here because I have something really important to share with you and I want to talk to you. David, what is up? I want to talk to you about the neurology of change, the neurology of transformation, and why you fear change. And why you fear change is not something you're going to change because majority, about 80% of your brain, the function and the structure of your brainstem, your amygdala, your hypothalamus, all the structures prefrontal cortex, right? This is your prefrontal cortex. Everything below that has a lot to do with fear, processing stress, emotions. And one of the reasons that you fear change is because what happens when we take on something new in our life, we are changing the narrative of who we are. We are changing the narrative of who we were into something that could be totally unknown. And oftentimes it's actually unknown most of the time, right? When we take on a new program, change, way of being, we are moving into something that maybe we never even imagined for ourselves. And while that can be exciting, it can also be terrifying. Because our brain likes to have knowns, our brain likes to have predictability, our brain likes to kind of predict the future based on past events and based on past patterning. So when we step into things that are totally new for us, whether it's a new narrative in our mind, maybe a new chiropractic care plan, whatever it is, there is this element of fear that's going to arise. Think of it this way. When you are making change and transformation in your life and you don't necessarily know what the outcome is going to be, but you have this level of trust and faith and you're basing it off of past results that you've seen people experience, you are shifting that old self. You have to have a conversation with it. And I'll talk about the two ways that you can shift this. One is having a conversation with that younger self. It could be your younger self from yesterday, or it could be your younger self from 10, 20 years ago, right? But when you start to move away from that old narrative, telling yourself maybe for many years, like, I'm always a victim of these things, like this always happens to me. And then all of a sudden you start to shift that and you become aware of those patterns and how they dictate your life. You have to have a conversation with your younger self. So for me, I imagine my 8-year-old self on a bike. I imagine standing in the front yard with her at my house growing up. It's sunny outside. She's holding this pink and white bike. And I imagine standing next to her and saying, you know what, little Melissa, which, by the way, that's my real name. That's my full name. I say, you know what, little Melissa, like, I'm with you. I know when I feel, this is what happened, when I feel the fear and when I feel kind of like those old narrative patterns of like, am I worthy? Am I feeling shame? Like whatever that old stuff is, oftentimes it can mean having a conversation with your younger self and being like, look, I hear you. I see you. I acknowledge you. I acknowledge those emotions that maybe I didn't pay attention to in the past. And I'm with you. Like, I got you. Like, we're going to do this together. And you get to come along the ride with me. You get to bring this younger self with you on the journey. You don't have to abandon them because it's that younger self that was adaptable. And it's that younger self that got you here. It's that younger, adaptable, resilient self that got you to where you are. And when you start to make change in a new direction, in a new path, you don't have to abandon them. You could take them along the ride. Maybe you abandon certain parts because that no longer feels good, but that essence of who you are and that soul essence of who you are gets to carry on, gets to carry through, and you get to be with it when you transcend. You get to bring it along with you. So one of the ways that I find really helps reduce that fear of change and embody the energy of taking action, acknowledging the fear, is having that conversation with that younger self. So that's one way that I found super helpful, is saying, hey, little one, like, you're still in there. I hear you, I see you, right? That's the majority of our brain deals with fear and deals with stress. Another thing that I find really supportive is also envisioning my future self. So I do this like kind of experience where I go to my past self and I say, hey, I'm with you, I'm in the now, I see you, I acknowledge you, because maybe in the past, like, you didn't feel heard, you didn't feel seen. And when we feel that suppression, it's gonna show up in other areas of our life. It's gonna show up in other areas now, right, for us to pay attention to. Then move and say, okay, like, I feel afraid, but I'm ready. You get to experience both. It's okay. Fear is a good motivator. We're meant to feel that physically. It's never gonna go away. But what we wanna make sure is that we don't freeze, we don't paralyze. We wanna keep moving forward, keep taking steps in the direction of this new path. And so what I do is acknowledging that younger self, and then what I envision is, who am I becoming? I envision that in the now. I see it and I experience it in my body. I bring those future like excitement and how I want to feel in my body, what I want to see. Like right now I'm bodybuilding and I have this picture on my vision board. And this is a balance of like acknowledging your past, being in the present, and excited about the future. It's kind of some time travel, but it's really fun. And I wanted to share with you all tonight because we were talking about it at our class. But I envision like, okay, this is how I want to feel. This is how I envision my body. This is how I envision feeling. Like, how does that feel, right? We can think about and see these things in physical manifestation, but you can really start to channel that and start to train your brain to move into it and train those pathways if you actually embody and feel it. Another example of this, when I used to play rugby, is we would practice visualization. This is part of meditation, where we're training our nervous system and our pathways in our brain to actually fire as though we're already completing the task. For us, it was completing our tackles, right? So having good defense, imagining running up to the girl carrying the ball, wrapping our arms around, squeezing, and then making the tackle and stopping, the try that could win the game for them. We imagine ourselves breathing and running and actually kind of moving our bodies and creating the scenario in our brain so that when we get to that point of the game or whatever it is you want to envision, your brain has already seen it, it's already heard it, it's already felt it. So we're training all parts of the nervous system to actually experience the future in the now so we can channel and call it in. And that comes back to, again, neurology. Your visual processing system takes in so much information. So if we can actually start to use our minds and our thoughts to our advantage, that in turn is going to help that transition and transformation from past self to now self to future self feel much more effortless, feel much more easeful, and way more fun. So you get to experience both the excitement and the fear at the same time. You can start to use that fear to your advantage. Let me tell you this, as a rugby player, like literally minutes before kickoff, even seconds before kickoff, you wanna know how many butterflies are in my stomach? And that's the adrenaline, those are the endorphins, that's the norepinephrine. Those are all the things that are like coursing through my system to get me to take action, to get me to make those tackles, to get me to adapt and respond the way I needed to. So I share this with you all. This is a very in-depth, beautiful conversation that we had tonight, where we really need to start acknowledging like the fear and acknowledging the resistance and acknowledging what can come up when you are making change. And here's another thing to leave you with this, to challenge your paradigm, is oftentimes we will not make change because we fear that abandonment of our old self. We have gotten so used to one way of being, we have gotten so used to the comfort of that way of being, that even imagining something different creates that energetic dissonance in our nervous system. It creates that tension, right? Oh my gosh, my life has always been this way. I can't imagine doing something else. And that's because your nervous system most likely is in that state of fight or flight, right? You can't access the higher ways of being and thinking in our prefrontal cortex, that kind of envisioning the future, if you are stuck in more of the lower brain, amygdala, brainstem, fight or flight. So this is one of the ways that I have found helps that transition when I practice meditation, when I practice acknowledging it in my body and saying, oh, I feel this fear. This is that old kind of patterning. And again, this is old parts of the brain too that are firing, right? If you think about the evolution of the brain, if you think of reptiles and snakes, they have the reptilian brain. We also have the mammalian brain, right? So dogs, cattle, all that. We also have the human brain, which is the ability to kind of transcend the now and have executive functioning and processes even into the future. Because most animals, again, are basing it off of the past, but we can use our brain to our advantage and see into the future and envision it into the now. So a little bit of energy for you, a little bit of nervous system work. I get that making change can feel hard, but hopefully with this series of steps, it can feel much more easeful. You can acknowledge that old way of being and say, okay, I see that. It's no longer working for me. I acknowledge the fear and I'm ready to move into something new and better for my life. And I acknowledge that unknown, which can also bring up fear. Just acknowledging it all, people. Acknowledging the spectrum of human that is you. I love and appreciate you. I hope you're having a great night. Thanks for tuning in, and I'm wishing you a great Wednesday tomorrow. Peace, love.